Hello and welcome to the Health Source podcast, your source for all things health, wellness, and lifestyle inspo. I'm your host, Beck Russell, health and life coach and the author of Life in the Soul Lane. Through conscious conversations, our aim is to inspire and empower you to live your most well, happy, and vibrant life. If you're ready to elevate your well-being, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Health Source podcast. I'm so excited for you to be here today and for you to hear this amazing conversation today that I'm having with the wonderful Georgie Collinson to celebrate the launch of her new book, Master Your Relationship Anxiety. So if you haven't heard of Georgie Collinson is Australia's leading anxiety therapist and author of two books, The Anxiety Reset Method and Master Your Relationship Anxiety. Specializing in high-functioning anxiety, she blends naturopathy, clinical hypnotherapy, and mindset coaching to provide a holistic, results-driven approach to overcoming anxiety. Through her online programs and the chart-topping Anxiety Reset podcast, she's helped thousands of women worldwide break free from overthinking, self-doubt, and emotional overwhelm. With a growing audience, Georgie is a trusted voice in mental well-being, empowering high achievers to cultivate inner calm, confidence, and resilience. I absolutely loved this conversation with Georgie today. We talked all things relationships, so we looked at some green flags to look out for and also some red flags to look out for to know whether or not you are in a beautiful, supportive relationship. We also talked about how the fact that a lot of the breakdown and the issues and the challenges that we face within relationships actually comes from a breakdown or a lack of clear communication and conscious conflict, and also a lack of our needs being met, and why we really struggle to be able to communicate what our needs are and feeling worthy of asking for what we need in relationships, plus so much more. It was such a wonderful conversation. I absolutely loved it. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Georgie, and we're talking all things love and relationships and how to master your relationship anxiety. Georgie, welcome to the Health Source podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy for you to be here too, because today we're going to talk all things love and relationships, which, can be the biggest teachers for us and maybe the greatest mysteries sometimes of our life. And so I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with you. We're here to celebrate the launch of your new book, Master Your Relationship Anxiety, which has just come out and I've just finished reading, and it's such an amazing read for all of us because we all, have interpersonal relationships, and so it's such a timely topic always for us to dive into. So before we get into that, Georgie, I'd love to ask you, because this is a health-based podcast, what are your top three, or you can do more or less, but some really grounded sort of regular practices that you have, or rituals or routines in your life that really support you to stay happy and healthy in your life?
Such a good question. I mean, the simplest answer I can give you is it is just a part of my way of being that I think about protein with every meal. And being a naturopath, that's such a crucial one for our energy levels, our muscle, our neurotransmitters, just keeping our bodies healthy on so many levels, blood sugar balance too. I love breath work. I'm big on breath work. That's definitely a big part of my practice as well, is working with the breath pretty much every day at some stage. It's always there. It's always a part of us. And I would say, last but not least, I love my cacao. Most mornings I have a ceremonial cacao. It's mineral rich. There's so much that we get out of our cacao, but I love how it sets me up for the day without like a big caffeine buzz. It's just a nice little warm ritual to do as a quiet thing for myself.
Those three I can totally relate to, especially like I feel like this conversation's quite present at the moment, but for us as women, making sure that we're getting that protein in with our meals to help sustain us. And the cacao is such a beautiful way to connect to the heart, and a beautiful substitute, I guess, from coffee. And the breath, I mean, I'm a yoga teacher as well as all the other things. And so I really love to just remind people that I interact with within that space to just connect to the breath, because I think it's one of the most simple and potent and profound but overlooked ways that we can sort of look after ourselves and connect to ourselves. And for
Mm.
me personally, it's the the best thing that I use, I think, in my life to help me move through stages of anxiety as well. So that's really
Mm.
relevant for today's topic as well.
Yes, for sure.
Now, one more question about you, Georgie, before we dive in. As much as you're comfortable sharing with us, this is a book about relationships, and you do share a lot of personal stories within the book about your experiences with relationships. So I thought if there was any that you'd like to share with us here on the podcast today of any specific relationship kind of experiences that you've had to really help you to pull and extract wisdom around relationships that you've shared with your clients and with us readers
Mm.
of the book as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's plenty of client stories in there to get different perspectives because I've obviously only had my life journey. And while I've had many experiences, they are also just my experiences. But I actually wanted to write this book back a number of years ago. I was always thinking, oh, these lessons I'm learning through love, like I will write a book about it someday because it seems like these crazy stories happen to me and I do feel like I'm on this big journey with it. But it turned out that when I originally wanted to write it, there were more lessons for me to go through. And so it's only been something I wrote in recent times, really getting to a place where now relationships feel like a safe place to be. It feels steady, calm. I feel like I really have a different sense of what it means to love someone and love than what it used to be for me. But and there's always more to learn, of course, we're never a finished, product, but taking us back, for me, I think the biggest sort of moment where I realized, okay, there's something that I need to look at within myself here was when my ex-partner broke up with me over the phone. We were living together in England and we had this sort of whirlwind romance. We were super in love. It was a really romantic story. We met on an island in Greece and I was solo traveling and he was a British Marine and we had this drink by the harbour side and he was looking into my eyes and telling me I'm gorgeous and just totally got me and loved that I was a naturopath. I didn't feel, with some people when you meet them, they might get certain ideas about you if you're a naturopath and think that you're really woo-woo or whatever. And he was just straight away got it. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so seen. This is great. Fireworks. And then he had to get off to Egypt the next day. So he had to get back to the ship that he was on. So all very exciting. And we kept in touch for a couple of years and sort of sent the odd, long message every few months. And then 2 years later, it was time for our second date. It just sort of eventually, it was like, are we going to do this or not? And so he flew out to Australia and it was a very risky moment, but it all seemingly worked out and we were in love and it was great and it was incredible and it was the most amazing love I've ever experienced. And yet, we were together 2 years and once it was actually time for us to live together and take that next step, that's where all the cracks started to show and the wounding that had drawn us together and the things that were not so healthy in the dynamic that which I was completely blind to. I just really thought this was the most amazing love ever and it doesn't get better than this and this is the Notebook. And it started to appear that once I was in England, he wasn't so interested in really being a partner to me. He was hot and he was cold. He was there and then he wasn't. He was out drinking with his mates and I wasn't invited. But then the next moment it's like, of course you can come to this other thing. Why wouldn't you think that you would be included in that? Or telling me about all these, ideas of things that we would do and I'm going to take you here and we'll do that together, but then nothing ever eventuating and this sort of expectation that I should just kind of take care of myself, even though I was new in a little town in England where it was wet and cold and there were seagulls everywhere squawking at you and it's not really a place that I would have chosen to be. And I didn't have any friends there. And, I think roles reversed. If that was me, I would have really taken care of someone and made sure, that they were given opportunities to settle in and giving them a lot of space. Whereas I wasn't really getting that. And to be honest, I was quite good at pretending I was fine with that a lot of the time. I didn't ask for more of what I needed. And I was good at just being this independent Georgie, but totally abandoning myself and ignoring my own needs in a lot of that too. And it all came crashing down, and I went back to Australia just to kind of reset. I was sort of missing home and just not so happy. But we were still together, and then it was like I was just about to fly back to England, and he called me and said, it's over. And that was devastating for me. I went into a big heartbreak through that. And for a long time, even after the relationship ended, had these fantasies of us getting back together, and thought like a love like that was so special. It had so much chemistry, so much passion. It must mean that we're meant to be together. And it took me a long time to really look at what was creating that scenario for me, and the fact that I actually have needs that weren't being met, and that I never really felt quite safe. I guess I just didn't know that it could be any different. And so that was one of my big lessons. And then I went through a series of dating and sort of kind of having miniature versions of that experience, where maybe I'd be love bombed and I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. And then, all of these problems would come up, and I was intent on breaking it and finding my way through this. And thankfully I did. And it's something that once I started doing this work, I knew was an inevitability for me, that once we look at our own wounding and we show up as a healthy partner in our healthiest expression of love, we are going to get that. We won't settle for less. It might take time. There's nothing that can sort of like speed up, or, there's no magic fix for you've got your partner now tomorrow, but it is something that is inevitable in this process. And I found that very inspiring, and I knew it before I even experienced it. And that's what I want this book to be for people, is like showing that roadmap. If you're struggling with some kind of patterns in love, you don't quite feel safe in relationships. Maybe you're with a great partner and they're a really good person, but there are certain patterns playing out that have you still feeling not safe within yourself. Well, this is a book for you for sure.
Wow, that's such an amazing story. And you do share that in the book as well. And so many things. I'm trying to think where we can go from there. You mentioned some key things of, realizing that you had some needs that were unmet, and, looking for that support from your partner that you needed that wasn't there. And I think one of the biggest issues people face, or challenges that people face in relationships, is a breakdown of communication. That's been in my experience anyway. And so have you got any other, I guess, main issues or concerns that you've seen through working with all of your clients about some of the main, what am I trying to say here? Some of the main issues or challenges that we face within relationships that can really lead to the breakdown of relationships, and then I guess how we can start to move through those.
Yeah. I mean, there's two big things popping out for me when you say that. The first is really coming down to what our expectations are of one another and what a relationship is, because that is very confused. Like in the message we get from pop culture, perhaps from our own families and our friends, is this idea that you're meant to just find the one, and you're meant to know, and they're just right, and it all just feels right all the time, and it's great, and you're just always in love, and you always want to jump their bones. And like the reality is that's just not what real relationships are. And so often we will come up against things that are uncomfortable in relationships, and we might think that that means there's a problem with the relationship and a problem with the other person, when in fact we are being asked to work through something within ourselves, a part of ourselves we don't feel comfortable with. For example, if you find that you're judging your partner and you're really seeing like that they're never good enough, and they're just like always disappointing you and letting you down, and it's like, oh, I just wanted you to do this one thing. Well, is that potentially mirroring a way that you feel about yourself when you look inside, that you feel you're disappointing yourself, that you're not doing enough, that you're not good enough? And as we start to sort of work through that within ourselves, it's much easier to then have not just compassion for our partner, but compassion for ourselves. and see that they're not a perfect person and they don't have to be. We are meant to have differences in relationships. We're not meant to be like next to the same version of us, like a cookie cutter. You know, I don't want to date me. I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. I want someone that's got different experiences and a different perspective to me. And in that heterosexual dynamic where we've got a man and a woman, how cool, because men have a very different experience of life to what women typically experience, just based on the virtues of, it's very different being a woman in this world compared to being a man. And so we think differently. We do have different perspectives, and we come together and we clash in those at times. Conflict comes up in relationships. I'm almost a little bit like, what's going on there when people say, oh, we never fight and everything's always fine. If you never fight, someone is allowing someone else to just always win. There's some kind of dynamic going on there that is allowing for, let's just keep the peace because that'll be the best always. When in fact, having conflict is good. It's healthy. It is how we figure things out. And, you know, we also have this sense, as I mentioned, that we're meant to be in love all the time. And that's, again, that comes and goes. That's normal in relationships, that we have this sort of like waves of attraction. I mean, can you think about yourself positively every second of every day? Can you have positive thoughts and feelings about you? Well, how can you expect yourself to have positive thoughts and feelings all the time about your partner? It's just not really where it's at in terms of reality and what it really takes to love and be loved. And really, love is much more about, and relationships are much more about, knowing that the other person has your back, seeing that evidence stacking up, that you can really trust this person to take care of your best interests, and vice versa, that you're going to be that for them too. The next thing that leads to this breakdown of communication is really conflict and the way that we approach conflict. And conflict's really tough. Like, it can be really challenging. It is the most ripe, rich area for self-growth. And we have to have our eyes open and an awareness of what's going on when we notice we're in conflict, because that's where we will really start to see these wounds play out. And it's almost like, I don't know if you've noticed this, Beck, but sometimes, you know, you might have in the past with a partner had a moment in time where everything feels fine and you're like, oh, I love you, it's so great, really like the person that you are. But then you get into a conflict and they become this like enemy, and you just want to win, and you're like, I just hate you right now. You know, you might not be thinking I hate you, you might not be saying those words, but we're opponents all of a sudden. The thing about conflict is, once it gets going, it's like, I use this metaphor in the book, it's like a sort of tornado, a cyclone that starts picking up. And then next thing, what started out as a simple argument about, you didn't call me to tell me you were going to be home late tonight and I cooked dinner and where are you, becomes, I just don't think we should even be together anymore. Like, it starts to pick up other resentments, other things, just like a tornado will start picking up like the roof of a barn and a cow and random things and start throwing it around. And when we can see conflict for what it is, that this is gathering momentum, and we are not going to solve anything from that place of conflict and building up that energy of trying to win and trying to be the one that's right, we can start to say, okay, we're in conflict and it's us against the conflict. Like, how do we now, you and me, figure out a way to get back to understanding each other, seeing each other through loving eyes? Because right now we're both feeling like we're just caught up in this conflict and like we've forgotten that we actually love each other. And there are a number of ways that you can break through that. My partner and I now use, like, sometimes it's literally just, I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'll come back. And when I come back, we are going to remember that we love each other. Or it might be going to get a glass of water. It might be, I have like a mist that has a nice scent that I spray on both of our faces. And it's so kind of silly and funny. And also, you know, it smells nice. It's the opposite of what you would be doing if you were continuing to escalate a conflict. You don't spray a nice smelling thing. Instead, you usually kind of start raising your voice more, and more of that pain is coming out and being expressed. that doesn't really get us anywhere. So we have to find a way to sort of interrupt the conflict, become aware that it's happening, um, find a way to, have those little reminders of, hey, remember that we love each other here. And you trying to see that you love that person too. And ultimately understanding that any conflict is about unmet needs every single time. So it's like, what am I actually not getting here that I need, that my partner most of the time is willing to give me? Sometimes we're in a situation where, like what I told you with my ex, like he wasn't really willing to give me what I needed, but at the same time, I wasn't great at communicating it. Like I just pretended I was okay with so much because I was scared to even ask for it, because I didn't even realize someone would give it to me if I asked for it. And as women, we're very good at ignoring our own, indirectly communicating our needs. We do it because it doesn't feel safe to directly say, I need a hug. I need you to solve this problem for me. I need you to take care of dinner tonight. Like we usually don't feel the worthiness, the deservingness of saying that, because we think we're meant to, solve everything by ourselves, or we've been conditioned to be very independent, powerful women. And yes, we are, and we can, but do you want to all the time? Like, do you really want to? That's the question that it comes back to, is like, when you're really in that self-worth with yourself, you can do it, but why would I? Like, why would I take the dirty rubbish out myself and get my fingers smelly and have to deal with that, when my partner is so happy to do that and doesn't feel as impacted by it as I do. Like, doesn't care that it stinks. Like, it's just happy to show up and be that. But I have to ask for it. I have to communicate it to get that. So these unmet needs are usually what's beneath it. And if we can really get to know ourselves and think in a conflict, what am I not getting that I need here? And remember that now I'm in a scenario where I actually can get that met, because we'll usually project in that conflict an image of what we experienced growing up. So what I mean is, if your parents never really listened to you and they just said, stop doing that, why are you doing that, Beck, you're so bad, you're such a naughty kid, but they never stopped to see, well, hey Beck, like what's going on for you? Why are you playing out like this? Like, this isn't normally how you are. What, like, are you okay? Do you need a nap? Do you need a hug? Are you feeling something? Right? So you didn't get that understanding. You were just told you're wrong, you're bad. These kind of dynamics come into our conflicts later in life, and we start to think that if no one's going to listen to us, so I won't even bother trying to explain myself because they're not going to understand me. But what we've got to do is we've got to drop into this more aware self who knows that now, if I do explain myself, like, this is a different person. This is not the people I grew up with. And I might get a different experience. And that's what makes relationships so healing when we have this awareness, is that we start to get what we need. We start to test the waters and see, well, what if I do ask for it? And what if I actually open myself to the possibility that they might understand me? What happens then? And yeah, that's part of the growth and the learning that comes through.
That's so true. Everything that you said is so relatable, especially like you said, as women, we have in this time that we've been in, led to believe that perhaps we're not worthy of what we need, or we're too scared to ask for what we want. And we've been conditioned to a degree to think that we need to be the independent woman. And so really remembering that we are in a dynamic and in a relationship with this other person, and it's not always one-sided. Like, it needs to be that beautiful sense of reciprocity and being able to stand in your truth and to know your worth. And I think there is such power and benefit and beauty in conscious conflict, like you were saying. Like, it's never about the thing as much as it is about let's excavate this a little bit more and see what's actually underneath it. And I think that's where we can get so much benefit in clear communication, because if we're not communicating and we're not expressing and we're not taking those times of conflict and using them as opportunities for growth and connection, then that's when the resentment builds and that's when the cracks can start to appear. So I really loved
Yeah.
everything that you shared there as well.
And we end up feeling closer on the other side of the conflict because, oh, you actually gave me what I needed. Oh, thank you. Like we can resolve so much and it makes us feel even safer than before.
Absolutely. And we've touched on it a few times, and I'd like to go a little bit deeper now into the wounding that we can bring into our relationships. Wounding from childhood would be probably a big, predominant part of that, but also bringing our past experiences of our life thus far into relationships. So I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that. Maybe some of the main wounding, I guess, that you have seen through your client work, what we bring into relationships, and then how we can kind of work through that as well.
Mm. Well, we don't know what we don't know, and so what we've experienced growing up is our version of normal, and that's what we think is like available to us, and it sets the stage for what a relationship with another human being looks like. Even though obviously and hopefully our relationships with our caregivers and our parents growing up is not a sexual relationship, it's not a romantic, intimate relationship, but it's still that blueprint of, are you going to be there for me when I need you? And are you around? And am I safe with you? And are you listening to me? And do I feel loved by you? And where it gets really confusing, Beck, is that later we might be told a story that we're a really happy family and you are so loved and look at how much we all love each other. And yet constantly everyone in the family is poking at each other and tearing one another down and little, oh no, it's just banter, it's just jokes, but it hurts. And there's this sensitive part of us, and we might be told, don't be too sensitive. And we might be told to, that we're stupid or we're silly. And so we get really mixed messages about what love is. We also might notice that we get praise only for certain things, like when you're really helpful. Oh, you're such a good helper. You're such a good girl. We learn what to be to get love. That when I'm academically brilliant, now I get love. Or maybe I'm not academically brilliant, but my sibling is, and they always get so much praise, and mum and dad make such a fuss about them every time they do well. So I must be that, and I'm clearly not enough now, but I must be better, and I'm not good enough as I am in order to be loved. Maybe I'm not worthy of that love because I haven't got this special thing about me that my parents are making a big fuss over. So children are experiencing lots of different messages from what their caregivers show them, and that's sort of teaching them about love. But we often miss the message and don't get the message of just, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad that you are part of our family, and I love you just as you are, and you don't need to change a thing. And and we're so glad that you're in this family. Like, we don't really hear that. We just hear there's something we've got to do to prove our worthiness to be a part of it. And so fast forward to adulthood, we've got all these beliefs that love isn't really available to me, or I'm not worthy of love because I'm not special enough, or I'm not this enough, or I need to work really hard to be loved. And I can't just be in this relationship. It's not enough for me to just exist here with my partner. I have to be constantly proving that I am worthy of being here in some way, which of course is exhausting. And then if we've had a parent who's inconsistent in some way, and now just keep in mind, this doesn't mean necessarily the extreme case of, your father walked out when you were a baby and you never spoke to him again. We might have a father present or a mother who works really hard and is really busy, and they're only really there 1 or 2 hours every evening when they come home from their busy day at work, and you finally get to see them, but they're not really interested in hanging out with you because they're so exhausted from work, and then they have to get up and go to bed so they can get up early. So you don't really get any time with them. And this can create this sense of lack, this scarcity about love, that love just, there isn't enough of it and I can't get enough of it, because you could never get enough time with that parent. And so there's different, that's a very common scenario. I mean, we have to work like crazy to keep up in this financial climate at the moment. People are, burning themselves out and working crazy hours. The expectations have never been so high just to survive. So this is happening all the time. And yet we wouldn't think that that's creating a sense of shaping our relationships, but it is. We're not getting enough time with those parents, and they're probably not even explaining to us, what's really going on. So we've got this warped impression that if I was better, if I was more interesting, then they'd want to spend more time with me. But work's always more important. That was a big one for me. And I still sometimes notice it, thinking, like, this old part of me thinking, oh, I can't interrupt my partner when he's at work, he's busy. But what's been so cool about, again, as you more and more you break these beliefs, you open your eyes to what's possible, and you see that it's just a story you've been telling yourself. My partner calls me all the time through the workday. And it really shocked me at the start because it wasn't something I was used to. I was used to men really saying, I'm working and I'm busy, go away. Like, that was what I heard from my dad a lot growing up. But yeah, now again, that's the healing of doing this work and opening to other possibilities, seeing through those limiting beliefs, is you get to experience something different too.
Wow, it's a lot, isn't it? And of course, all of us, our parents are always doing, the best that they can with the resources and the awareness that they have at the time of our childhood. But
Exactly.
there's, there's so many little and big things that happen throughout our life when, especially in those formative years of, 0 to 7, where we're like little sponges and we're picking up on everything and they imprint on us. And unless we start to do, and I know you do this in your work too, Georgie, start to really tap into our subconscious through things like hypnosis that can help us to really unearth, like what's really going on here under beneath the surface that's allowing me to accept this poor behavior or believe this about myself, or whatever the
Mm.
thing is. So
Mm.
yeah, it's a lot for us to work
Yeah.
through.
I'll tell you an example of that that's really fascinating, Beck. I didn't put this in the book, but there was one client I worked with last year on just a lot of the anxiety for her was about relationships and just feeling like she wasn't quite safe, and that she just was she couldn't trust people, and she was going to be left, and there wasn't enough love. And when we did a regression, we went back, we actually went to a memory. Now, she had no idea of this memory before we spoke. And so a lot of people think, like, I don't have any memories. That's okay. They're in there. It's just about the process to work through them. She had a memory of the moment she was born. How
Wow.
crazy is this? And it was like just bright white, because of course she's not cognitively aware of much, but she just knew that she was in a really bright white room, and all she could remember was, where's mum? Why is mum gone? And what had happened, and she sort of talked to her mum after and asked her about the birth. Her mum had to be rushed away straight after the birth. They weren't allowed that skin on skin contact. So she was very quickly and unnaturally severed from her mum. Now, is anyone at fault here? Was anyone doing the wrong thing? No, of course. Like, it was obviously some kind of emergency scenario, but it left such an impact on this little baby who grew up into a woman, thinking, like, all of a sudden this safe place can just go and I can just lose it all. And where is she? And I don't know when she's coming back. And the trauma of not knowing that you could ever get your needs met again is pretty much what was shaping so much of her anxiety. It's just so fascinating, right? That these things can be so beyond what we are cognitively aware of or consciously aware of.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's why, as we move through the world and through life, I think a lot of us are becoming so much more aware and so much conscious, and so much more consciousness around it. And where a lot more of us are choosing to do this work. And so this is, if you're open to it, if you haven't begun, excavating any potential limiting beliefs or subconscious patterns, anyone listening, I would highly encourage you to start to explore that if you feel called to, because we just gain so much benefit from it, not only in our relationships, but in our life in general as well.
It will only benefit your life. I think we're often scared to go on that journey because we think, oh, what am I going to dig up? And I'm going to re-traumatize myself. Whatever's happened has already happened. It's already impacted you, and it's impacting you right now. So when you look at it, we can actually do something about it. and we can shift it and change it and get your power back.
Absolutely. And there's nothing more empowering than that, is there, than making that conscious choice to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Georgie, just before we sort of shift gears a little bit, in the book, you do speak to quite a few sort of like red flags, for lack of a better expression,
Mm.
that you can sort of like look out for in relationships. Are there some top ones or some common ones that you found that a lot of us sort of experience that we should be looking out for to know perhaps this is not the right relationship or the right person for me?
Mm. Well, the first thing I'll say about that is it's very, very common. I have a chapter about this for women with high functioning anxiety to get involved in a relationship with red flags, with the kind of people who might have abusive behavior or highly narcissistic tendencies. The reason for that is because this perfectionist sort of quality that tends to come out in our high functioning anxiety. Maybe we're really good at our job, or we're just always put together and we put a lot of effort into our appearance, or we're simply just very organized and conscientious people. We also tend to be highly empathetic, and there's something shiny about this that someone with narcissistic tendencies really wants. And so it's not usually we have this idea of the victim in a relationship, and especially an abusive scenario, being someone who's really weak and feeble and doesn't like themselves at all. But it can often be that, you might have okay confidence in yourself, but it's the chipping away of that confidence that happens once the relationship begins. And that's very intentional to control you. So some of these red flags might look like love bombing. And there might be a part of you that's like, yeah, I know I'm a high achiever. I know I've got these great qualities. So when they tell them to you and they're like, oh my God, like after one date, I just want to marry you and you're so amazing and I've never felt this way before. We believe it because it feels nice, but also you'll notice something feels off about it. Something feels a little confusing, a little bit too much. And you can sense that this person is kind of like not 100% inhabiting the reality of the world that you inhabit. That's quite different to what I was talking about before about having different perspectives, differences in opinion. That's going to happen, and that's beautiful in relationships. But people who have this real sense of like, it ultimately comes from a deep belief that love isn't available. So it's actually the same belief, but their way of coping with it is, okay, so I have to grab love, I have to control it, I have to kind of pin it down and almost kill it, like if I'm going to get the love that I need. And so while on the other side of the spectrum, which is many of the people that I'll be speaking to in the book, it's like, oh, love's not available, so I have to be really nice to get it and I have to try really hard to get it, and I'll bend over backwards to get it, and I'll mold myself in a million shapes to get the love. So those two tend to come together as the perfect storm. Mm-hmm. But that abusive behavior will usually sound like not taking any responsibility for their actions. And this isn't just like, because sometimes we don't like taking responsibility for our actions. It's like they will never. Like it is always someone else's fault. It is always, oh, well, or possibly your fault. There will be this slow degradation of your self-esteem, your self-worth. They'll chip away at it. It'll be one moment they're telling you you're beautiful, you're amazing. The next moment they're saying, how could you do that? Are you a fucking idiot? Like, what is wrong with you? So I think it's really important for people to know it's not all bad. If it was all bad, why would anyone be in it? There's something that hooks you in. There's something good. There's beautiful memories. Like I have beautiful memories with that ex-partner that, to be honest, there's still a part of me that's glad I lived them. I'm just so glad I'm not in that now. And I'm in a better scenario now where I actually can get what I need, that we had some great times. And so that's why we stay, because we forget, oh, well, I'm very empathetic. I'm very understanding. He's had a hard upbringing himself. Like I can understand and I can forgive and I can understand. And we do that over and over, but there's an imbalance in us showing up for ourselves and what we need. And we are just way too good at giving all the space to them and not really protecting and defending ourselves in that. Of course, there can be physical abuse as well, but There could be public humiliation. So they might sort of send a group text to their mates and say, look, we had this argument, and look, I showed all of my friends and they all think that you're an idiot and I'm right. That's a big tactic as well. That's quite red flaggy. And I think that really sums up the main ones. There's different ways, like we get financially controlled and things like that. But we often think red flags are just someone punching you in the face and physical abuse. That's kind of like the obvious one. We got the subtle ones that I think we really need to speak to, which is, just like they're always chipping away at you. They don't really have your back. They've got their back, not yours. And when they are doing nice things for you, they're doing it for them. They're doing it to keep you there so that they can continue controlling you and feeling powerful in themselves, because deep, deep down, they feel so damn powerless. And it's a very sad, because there's usually a story behind it, and there's usually a reason, and there's a human in there, which is what does seduce the empath. It does make you see their perspective when you love them. But we also have to wake up and smell the roses and see that, we're just not getting what we need here. We're not safe.
And I think a lot of us have had this experience, or know someone who has, where you sort of stick around because you can, well, number one, like you said, you love the person and you can understand how they got to where they are now because of the life that they've experienced, but also you are attached to the potential of what could be, or how they could be, or your life could be together, rather than the actuality of it. But I think a lot of us, particularly as women, we are very intuitive. And so if something doesn't feel right, or if you're picking up on something, then it's very unlikely that you're wrong. So you need to kind of just trust what you're feeling about the situation that you're in as well.
Yeah, you'll feel it in your nervous system. You feel kind of more like prey, and they're like a predator on some level. Even though, yes, they're meant to be your loving partner, there's a consistent lack of safety that's there. Whereas in a more healthy dynamic, when it's just our own wounds and our unsafety coming up, we'll notice it comes, but it also goes. And you can also very clearly see all these green flag behaviors from your partner. They've got your back. That even though you don't see eye to eye all the time, and maybe they've got your back in a way that's different to how you'd have your back, you can sort of see that they are trying to show up for you, and they really do care for you and your well-being, equal to their own.
I want to talk about the green flags just as we prepare to sort of wrap up here, because we have spoken a lot about some of the red flags and some of the potential woundings and the challenges we can face. But I'd love for us to just talk now about the green flags and how we can know if we are in a healthy relationship, and how we can really bolster that or cultivate that within ourselves. I mean, we have to come as two healthy people together to form a healthy relationship. So what does that look like for you and your experience with your relationships, and also the clients that you work with as well?
Well, number one, a healthy partner, green flag, is that they are consistently available. There is a regular pattern of availability. In the dating world, we've got this idea of, you got to be cool and wait 3 days after the date to contact them. And it's totally fine that a week has passed. But if you're someone with a sensitive nervous system, and the reality is, like, pretty much all women are built in with this need to have someone by our side, like to have someone actually protect us. We don't like to talk about that, because we're meant to be strong, independent women that don't need men. But there is a healthy way that men show up for us that, it's just like an exhale. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't have to take the bins out by myself. I don't have to do everything by myself. I don't have to sit there and figure out what's wrong with this crazy electricity bill because, the numbers are wacky, and I just like don't want to do this. But like, they love numbers, or like, I'm just giving an example. Obviously there are women that love numbers and love bills, but how nice to have someone helping you. Like, it feels so good. So we do feel safe when there's someone showing up for us. And one of the ways you can see that is that they're consistently available. And you don't want that phase in early dating to go on for so long that, now we've been together for 8 months and we're in this situationship. And sometimes I hear from him, sometimes I don't. And, I'm just at his beck and call, and he's got all the sway and the pace of the relationship. You know, it's got to be that you've found a rhythm of communication where you're not sitting there wondering, when am I going to hear from them, and will I hear from them, and what's going on, what's he up to, and like that's such a benefit to have someone that, you know, maybe they call you every day coming home from work, or you always speak on the phone before you go to bed at night, or you always see each other every single weekend for the beginning, like, and you just sort of have this pattern. When that pattern's disrupted, we are very sensitive to that. But someone who's had a very disrupted pattern their whole lives with people being available to them will ignore that. You know, if dad was very busy all the time, or mum was very busy, like, we'll ignore that and we'll say, oh, that's fine, that's normal, that's all I deserve. You deserve someone that's consistently available. Another thing is, you will notice that they are a kind and respectful person. And you will see that in the way they show up for others as well. You'll see it reflected in the kinds of friends that they surround themselves with. You'll see it in the way that they treat wait staff and Uber drivers. You know, they're not going to just be rude and closed off, unless, of course, like, everyone can have a bad day sometimes, right? And we could just be stressed out and not want to have a conversation with our Uber driver. But they're not going to, like, you know, shut someone down and be overtly rude and closed. So the next thing you'll notice is that in a green flag partner, they encourage you to have your own interests. They're not just going to tell you that what you like doing is stupid, or try to get you to only like what they do. They're quite happy for you to go off and go to that yoga class or go hang out with your friends. When we're in a more red flag scenario, they'll tend to try and isolate us from everything that was our old life, because everything outside of you being obsessed with them is a threat to them. In a green flag relationship, we'll also show that they are genuinely trying to meet your needs and show up for you, even if they don't always get it right. That's okay. That's also partly your responsibility to communicate what you need and let them know when they're not getting it 100%, and say, hey, but wouldn't it be so much better if, instead of having pizza at home, like, we went out to a nice dinner and we got steak, and like, you can let them know what you need. Although that's more of a want than a need, but yeah. And then, yeah, they're going to be able to take feedback, right? That's a big green flag, is that you can have a conversation with them and they can say, on some level, even if there's initial defensiveness, because, as I said, no human being likes being told that you're wrong or that you're bad. So they might come up and sort of say, oh, but eventually they can see with communication that there is, you know, something that they can do better, and they can reflect on, and they can take responsibility. That's usually not something that comes naturally to most people, but it is something that we have to be able to do if we're going to have healthy relationships.
It all just sounds so beautiful, and just all of us, you know, we all deserve to have those things within relationships. So that's definitely something for us to consider. Anyone listening who maybe you are sort of having some issues within your relationship, or you're questioning whether or not this is the right place for you to be, maybe take on board what Georgie has said here today and use your intuition as well for you, to help guide you to know what the next step forward for you is in your partnership. Georgie, this has been so incredible. It's such a big topic, relationships, isn't it? And I feel like there's so much more we could dive into, but I'm so grateful for you to have shared all of your knowledge and wisdom and experience with us here today. But is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you would really like to leave the listeners with?
Look, I think we did a great job, because there was so much that now I'm thinking about, I'm like, we covered quite a lot and in depth. But I think one big misconception I'll just sort of clear up is this idea that we need space. And I love talking about this one, because so many of us think, well, I need space. I need my alone time. And the most fundamental thing every single human being needs is connection. So when you find yourself saying, I need space, I want to get away, I don't want to continue this conversation, you might notice that if you did stay and you communicate how you're feeling, right now I really want to get away, I want to get out of this, you would have an opportunity to actually get the connection you're seeking, potentially with the right person, with someone who's open to that. And when we continually create space and we get away from what we're feeling and the discomfort of the confrontation or the conversation, we are missing that opportunity. And we're usually doing it because, oh, now I can just be myself. Now that I'm not with that person. Typically, when we feel like we need a lot of space, it's because we have a sense that we're not really safe to be our authentic self. And that's exhausting holding that up all the time. That's why we don't need space from our cat or our dog. Like, you're never like, oh, just like personal space, please. Maybe we need personal space, but we don't feel like we need a break from them. You know, like they can just sleep on the floor and be around us, because you can be whoever you are as you are around your pet. But we often feel around a person, they're going to judge me. I need to look a certain way. I need to be a certain way. So that's a really interesting one to go into, is that need for space.
Definitely. And thank you for highlighting. That's such a beautiful way for us to finish, just to make sure that we are, no matter who we're around, whether it's, you know, family or personal or intimate relationships, that we maintain that authenticity, because it is exhausting and we all deserve to be here on this planet as our true authentic self. That's why we're all here, and that's why we're all different. And so it's important for us to let that shine through as
100%.
Georgie,
Couldn't
thank
agree
you
more.
so much. Could you share with us where people can find you, your new book, Master Your Relationship Anxiety, and also how we can work with you as well?
Beautiful. Well, Beck, my book is available in bookstores all over Australia. You can get it online. You can also listen to it as an audiobook that I narrate, which is really cool. And in terms of working with me, I work with clients in a set 4-month program, where we're really closely working together through a big journey. We go through the subconscious, we dig out all this stuff that we don't know, and get to the root of anxiety. It's very results driven, as opposed to just like circling around in, oh, there's another problem with you. But I've also got other things that are available on my website. You can check out georgiecollinson.com, or come follow me on Instagram at Georgie the Naturopath, which is where I hang out a lot too. And don't be shy. Come say hi.
Thank you so much, Georgie. And yes, make sure you go and check out Georgie's Instagram, website, grab a hold of the new book as well. And Georgie, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Health Source podcast.
You're so welcome, Beck. It's been a pleasure.
I absolutely loved this conversation with Georgie today, talking all things relationships. Relationships are such a big part of our lives, and it's really important for us to begin to learn how we can show up better in relationships, and how we can ask for what we need in relationships, and really foster the most healthy and supportive relationships that we possibly can. So I hope you took a lot from this episode. Make sure you grab a copy of Georgie's new book, Master Your Relationship Anxiety, and you can get that anywhere that books are sold. And you can also connect with Georgie on Instagram. Her handle is at Georgie the Naturopath. Check out Georgie's website as well, which is georgiecollinson.com. You can connect with me over on Instagram as well. My handle is at BeckRussell_, and you can tag Georgie and myself, or reach out to us both and let us know what you enjoyed most out of this conversation. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, I'm so grateful if you share a rating or review, or share it with one of your loved ones who you think would really benefit from the information inside this conversation. As always, thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy here by listening to the podcast. I'm always so grateful. And until next time, take really good care of yourself, and I'll chat to you again soon.